Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about what has been called the Chinese equivalent for Tomoe River. It's the Crena Spark paper. Now, I was sent some of this when I got my Me Plus a while back, and it was an intriguing paper. And since then, I've ordered some more varieties to use and play around with and test out. So let's take a look at this and see how it performed using my standard pens and inks combination that I've used on other papers, so we have a good comparison point. So let's take a look and get into it. Okay, so let's get into looking at this Crena Spark paper. Now, I've tried to film this video 3 times, and I was running into issues where my audio and video was getting out of sync, so I'm recording in a different way now that seems to have worked on my past couple of videos, so I should be pretty good about talking about this paper by this point, but let's get into it. So to start off, what came with my Me Plus was a plain pack of blank Crena paper, and this is a 50 GSM paper, and it's marketed as similar to Tomoe River in terms of performance, feel, and things like that. So Tomoe River is 52 GSM, so that's what I'm going to be comparing it to today. Now, I also ordered, and let me switch over to the side camera here to show these a little bit better, if it'll focus right there. So this is the dot grid paper, and then this is just a plain grid. So I wanted to have all 3 to be able to use in this testing that I was doing, because I feel like I'm mostly a dot grid or grid user. Blank paper has its purpose, and I've been using this in like ink swatching and taking it to Pen Club and handing out sheets of this paper because I find it interesting. But I really wanted these so I can use in my work notes, my day-to-day type writing, just to give it a better chance, because it's, like I said, it's a very interesting paper to me. Now, before I get to the writing sample that I did, let me go through the pens and inks and writing accessories that I used when doing this. So this is on the left. This is my kind of become my standard testing set of pens, inks, pencils, and etc. So on the left, we have a TWSBI 580, and this has the Colorverse Pulsar Pulse ink in it. We have a TWSBI Eco in a fine nib, and this has the Robert Oster Blue River Venice exclusive ink in it. We got another TWSBI Eco here, the medium nib that has a Roshizuku Kosumosu in it. Got another TWSBI Eco with a broad nib, and this has the Pelikan Edelstein Onyx in it. Got the Lamy 2000, I have my stainless, has the extra fine nib, and I have a Roshizuku Shinkai in here. Got my Opus 88 Omar, and in here I have Teranishi Guitar Gentle Green. And this ink I also use for the swatching when we get to the bottom of the page because of its color change properties, and I'll show that when we get to the writing sample later in the video. The next pen I have is the Azvine J16, and this has the Yovo extra fine nib in it, and this has the Roshizuku Saiyan Gyo in it. And I just realized I don't have it in here because I keep it out for normal use. I have the Uni 4-in-1 multi-pen, and in that I was using all 4 of the colors, the black, blue, red, and green, just to have the colors and the variety writing sample there. I have an Oto 0.5mm rollerball. I have a CW wooden pencil. I have a 0.5mm Kuratoga mechanical pencil, and then a good old-fashioned Sharpie. So this is what I use for doing the paper testing, and this kind of has become my standard set, and that's why these pens mostly only get used at the moment when doing paper tests, so I have the same ink fills in them to that level. Now, I do occasionally pull out like the Opus 88 or some of the other pens to use in the meantime, but I have been keeping them gathered up in this Lockbee roll just so I have a good, true comparison, limiting as many factors as I can. So let's get over to the writing and see how it looks. Okay, so here we have the Crena Spark on the left, and then some Tomoe River 52 on the right. And when I do this writing, I do it on a grid card so I can keep the lines as even as I can to try and have consistency. So let's take a look at how the inks showed here. And I'm mostly going to use this overhead camera. I had to make it a little bit darker than I'd like for filming, just so I can get not too much reflection off the bright white sheet of paper. But looking at here, looking at the writing here, you can see the Colorverse Pulsar Pulse. That is a sheening ink. You can see the sheen even coming through with the lower light. The other inks all perform true to size, I would say. This paper doesn't really make a medium nib feel like a broad or anything like that. You can see a little bit of sheen on the Shinkai. The Opus 88 with the Teranishi guitar, you can tell that the ink changes color. And what I mean when I say that, you can see on this ink swatch here, when this ink goes on fresh on the paper, it's kind of almost a royal blue color. And then as it dries, it turns into more of the tealish green. Now, this one did not dry as much as on Tomoe, and I'll show side by side here in a moment. But it did allow the ink to change color as it dried. And there's some other papers like Irriful and things like that that don't necessarily do that. So that's something I've added into my standard testing. But the ballpoints, they all write fine on here. The rollerball came through. The pencils performed great. And then the Sharpie. Now let's go to the back side and see how we fared there. So you can see there's show through the slightest little bit on all of these different pens and ink combos, but there's not really bleed through except for the Sharpie, and I would expect the Sharpie to have that. The rollerball has a slight little sense of a little bit more show through because black ink, and then you can tell where I did the swatch because it actually has a yellow undertone that comes through on the back of the paper. So in terms of comparison, Tomoe, you can see similar properties in terms of what's showing sheen, the pens writing true to size. Now you can see in this ink swatch, it did turn more green than the Crena, which stayed a little bit more blue. So this is why I like doing paper samples, because you can see just the little differences in how they perform. So it's interesting to see that. And then for the back of the Tomoe, for reference, you can see the rollerball does not show through as much. Nothing else really shows through more than on the Crena. The Sharpie does the Sharpie. And even on the swatch, there's the slightest little tint of yellow. The camera is showing it more than to the regular eyes, but slightest little bit, but not as much as the Crena. And then in terms of, thinness, you can tell this is slightly thinner. It's got a little bit more of a, thinness to it that you can hear and you can see when moving the paper. This is a little bit more rigid, but overall, decent paper. And like I said, it's interesting. It's Tomoe, you either love it or you hate it. It's gone through different changes. So there's a lot of people I know are looking for alternatives. And I think this would fit that bill. It's a pretty nice writer. It's about the same price point as the Tomoe. So if you're a little bit tired of Tomoe and you're looking for another option, give the Crena Spark paper a try. And one thing I kind of love and also kind of don't is that on the Crena paper, they have Crena there. And then on the back side, they have Spark. So I believe Crena is the company and Spark is like the line of paper. Now, I know Plotter does that on their paper where they have their branding there. But I also kind of like the ability to have just blank paper without branding on it. So that's a little minor, I guess, personal preference of mine that I think I'd prefer to not have that on there. But that being said, in doing paper comparisons and looking at these two, it's a lot easier to know which one is which at a quick glance instead of having to sit there and feel the paper and see how thick it is and how it performs. So just a little side note. So overall, been pleased with the Crena paper. I've been using it, like I said, at Pen Club, across the board, and in different things. So I definitely look forward to continuing to use it and seeing what other people think about it. Because it's like that, it's not as common as you would think across the pen community that I've seen. You don't really see that many people talking about it. So it's always interesting to hear new people's perspectives on it, like when I give them some at Pen Club or things like that. Or I also took some of this to the Pelikan Hub and handed out like half a pack just to people so they could take a couple of sheets to play around with and see if it's something they wanted to look at purchasing themselves. So I would like to know, though, are you familiar with the Crena Spark paper? Have you heard of it? Have you tried it? Leave me a comment. This is it's like I said, it's been out for a while apparently, but it's not that easily accessible. I was able to find mine on the Me Plus website. The only other places I really found it for sale was online through a shop in Singapore, and then it's also listed on AliExpress. So let me know if you've tried this and what your thoughts are, especially in comparison, like I'm doing here, to Tomoe River 52, so we have we can start compiling notes and see, oh, well, it's similar to this, but it's also, have you tried it and compared it to this? Because I'd love to do some more comparisons down the line of this Crena paper to some other options. So if you have any suggestions or recommendations, leave those down in the comments as well. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this look at the Crena Spark paper. Like I said, leave me some comments. Let me know your thoughts on it if you've had a chance to try it, or if it's something that you might now look into trying to find some to play around with, just because it's just an interesting paper. And it's always fun to try out new papers to see if it could become your new favorite, or at least one that's a tool to keep in your repertoire of stationery accessories. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.